Well, hi, and welcome to another edition of Don Allphin on Fishing. I've had a lot of people commenting and viewers, many of you looking at my videos and asking me what I do for tackle, what I do for rods and reels and line and obviously the baits. So today I'm just going to take you right from the rod to the reel to the line to the baits and how I do things. And while I'm doing it, because it's such beautiful weather, I'm going to be fishing. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for hopefully some information on my tackle and maybe a few fish in the boat. Well, let's see what we got here. Looks like it's a nice coke. If I can get him in. Yep, there he is. That's exactly what we wanted. Very nice fish. Great fish. But to start, the little bit of explanation, I'm using right now one of my favorite rods for bass fishing. You got to remember that I'm a dual-purpose angler. A lot of my rods, and I have over 50 of them, are set up because I'm a professional bass fisherman. So a lot of these rods are bass rods, but they're finesse rods. So they're my spinning tackle generally. I've got a couple of bait casters that I use for various presentations, but that hopefully I'll be able to mention. But the reality is that this rod is a $250 to $300 rod, and it's made by Gary Dobyns. It's called a Champion XP, if you can see it there. The cool thing about what Gary does, and he's not the only one that does it, but if you look on the back, it says it's a DC 703 spinning. SF is for spinning. It's a 7-footer. It's a one piece. You use 18 to 17 pound test, 3/16 to 5 ounce lures. It's a medium action or a medium strength, and then a fast action. And then it gives you an idea of some of the things you can fish with it. Most of them are related to bass, but this is obviously one of my very favorite rods to use when I'm fishing tournaments for bass, and I'm now fishing fewer tournaments because I'm basically retired from much of that fishing. I'll do it every once in a while, but not very often. And so I've kind of integrated some of my bass fishing rods into my kokanee and lake trout and rainbow rods that I use here on Flaming Gorge. So that's the first thing, and then I love Quantum reels. I used to be sponsored by Quantum, and had a fairly nice deal with them, but I still love their reels. And I just have to tell a quick story that I used to spend $200 to $300 a pop, even at discounts, for some of the Shimanos and the Daiwas and other very, very high-end reels, and I'd use them in my bass fishing. And what I learned is that every reel that I used essentially would need to be tuned up probably within 2 to 3 years of my purchase, maybe even less sometimes. And so what I learned is when I sent those big expensive reels out to be fixed, they would come back and they never were the same. I never once had a reel come back to me in better shape than when I sent it. So why was I spending $250 to $300 for a reel when in reality I only was using them for a year and a half or 2 years and having to throw it away because it never really was able to duplicate what it was when it was new. So I moved to Quantum, and I love the PC series, or the PT series. This happens to be a Quantum Vapor, and I really like it. And I use it a lot, but that's just one reel. I've got probably 10 of the Quantum Accurists, which is a PT Accurist, and I really like those. Usually a 5.2 gear ratio, and the thing I really love about them is that they're inexpensive enough that I can buy them for under $100 each, and to be honest with you, at that particular price, when these reels break, I just replace them. So I actually put into my fishing budget that I use each of these reels for a year, and if they continue to produce well, I'll go for the next year, and then as soon as they break or become less functional, then I just go ahead and sell them to someone that is looking to rebuild their own lures or something like that, or their own reels or something like that, and then I'll let them handle that, and I'll just buy 10 new ones. So that's how I do and that's my reel. So Gary Dobyns Rods, essentially. I've had St. Croix. I probably still have a few ugly sticks and stuff like that for very specific breakdown packing rods and stuff like that. But for the most part, when I'm fishing kokanee salmon, and I'm fishing most of the stuff that I fish here at Flaming Gorge, I'm using Gary Dobyns rods. That should be another kokanee. It's coming up fast enough to be a nice koke. Let's see what it is. Yes, sir. Well, we ought to start the next phase of the discussion about tackle and get to line. So I'm sure a lake trout here. Well, I believe it's a lake trout. It's acting like a lake trout, and I actually snagged that lake trout. I'll let him go, but. So the line I use is a line made by Berkley called NanoFil, and it's been out for about a decade, and it's a wonderful line. It's almost a braid, but not quite a braid. It's made out of a fiber, and basically this is made for spinning reels only. And basically for me it casts, if I have to cast and retrieve, it casts farther by around 35% than anything else I've ever had. And I get the clear. It comes in green and it comes in clear. I've got both green and clear on rods in my boat, but most of my rods are with clear. But the thing that's interesting about it is you will not I don't put the NanoFil directly tied onto the lure. I put a fluorocarbon leader, maybe 2.5–3 foot leader, on the end of the NanoFil, and I do it with a double uni knot. Now, YouTube has a bunch of videos on how to tie a double uni knot, so I won't go into that detail. But then on the other side of the coin is when I use my quantum reels, before I put the NanoFil on my reel, I will put some backing on the reel, just like you do fly rods, or fly reels, I mean. And I'll put backing, but the backing on this just needs to be maybe 50 yards of 6-pound test monofilament, very inexpensive line. The reason for doing that is that these quantum reels are not set up to have NanoFil as the main line, so it does not engage the drag very well if you just fill up your reel with NanoFil without putting some kind of backing. So I found that if I just put 50 yards of 6-pound monofilament, then my drag works absolutely beautifully on the braid, and so I have, in essence, if you want to look at it that way, leader on both ends of the NanoFil. But I love NanoFil. There's absolutely no stretch to it. I'm actually fishing down here. You can see where I've got my lure. I'm down there at that line of fish in 40 feet of water. And the bite's been a little bit slow. I've been out for about a half hour now. And it's been just a little bit slow for the kokanee. I've had one good kokanee bite, but just that lake trout that I actually snagged is the only fish that I've got in the boat so far. But getting back to the line, so there's no stretch to it. It casts a mile, and the only downside to the NanoFil is that it kind of collects water. Not much of it, but just enough that if I'm fishing it in the winter and through the ice, for example, sometimes if it's really, really cold, the NanoFil will want to stay in the reel too long. It'll kind of like almost freeze into the reel. So it's not as free spooling in the wintertime. So I switch to a fluorocarbon or an ice line, or something else that will not allow that water to stop it from just freewheeling. Because one of the beautiful things about this is in NanoFil is I can just go like this, and off goes my lure. Off it goes. And so it's one of those amazing things that I have to do less work, fewer jobs, so to speak, to get my lure down there in front of the fish. So that's the line I use. Oh, I just missed I'm sure it was a lake trout. That was a delayed hit. I went to drop, and the line just stopped, and so as I started to reel up, I realized that fish had hit me as soon as my line went down. So if I would go like this and let it go on a slack line, it had stopped about halfway. And so I'm convinced that was a lake trout, because that's not how kokanee act. For the most part. Every once in a while you get fooled, but not very often. Anyway, so that's my line. Another thing people ask all the time is about my hooks. I actually really like red treble hooks. Now they're not truly red; they're just painted red. But I do not know why, but I have a feeling it's just like fish gills are red, and flashes of red happen all the time in the column, and I think that's something that actually does attract fish. And so I use red. Now that does not mean that I don't use black, and I don't use natural steel colors, but I do really like the red hooks. And one of the things that I found, if I don't have any Coconators and I want to just use just a regular slab spoon or something like that to get down to them, I will many times change the hook. First thing I do will just change the hook. I have a little pair of pliers that helps me split the split ring and easily change hooks. And so when I do that, I have a box of hooks in my boat here, probably 300-400 hooks in the box, all different sizes, all different shapes. Most of them are, in fact, treble hooks, but in this particular box. But I really like throwing red, and so that's when you see me with lures that I've used consistently day after day. You'll see the red is coming off, but the dye or the paint, whatever they do. But that's what I use. But that doesn't mean that I don't use others. Well, let's talk about baits for a second. So, you know that I use the Coconators, that they're made by P-Line, and sometimes they're hard to find. Sometimes you can find them. I just look online. Sometimes I find them on Amazon. Sometimes I find them on eBay. You got to be careful a little bit with Amazon, because they've got all those private sellers that are doubling or tripling the price. A Kokanator should cost between $4 and $5 a piece, and last time I looked on Amazon, the only ones I could find that were chartreuse were $8 and $9, and I know that their cost is about $3 from the company, so that's tripling the price is a little bit much. But anyway, the thing that I do with the Kokanator that I want to tell you, that I don't care what spoon you use. You can use Acme spoons. They've got a ton of them. You've got all types of I want to say homemade, but you got a lot of jigging spoons for other species that you can certainly use. So you don't have to use just P-line. But one of the things that I want to talk to you about is how I rig them once I've got them. But I'm going to go ahead and reel up here a second and show you basically what I do. Now, the Kokanator comes with a split ring, as you can see right up on top. By the way, the wind started blowing a little bit, and so I put a little glove on my hand that's holding the pole, and I got my coat on, so that's going to be me the rest of the day. But this is a little split ring, and I put that on. Now, that comes that way with the Kokanator, but so many of your spoons that you can buy regularly do not come with a split ring. I really want to have a split ring. And then, of course, you have a split ring on the bottom where you hold your hook. And so if you do that, both of those things, then that's what you do. And what you're trying to do down there is just you're trying to dance, make that jig dance. You probably can't see that in the water, but just by wiggling your tip, you're making that spoon look like it's dancing down there. And to me, that's exactly what the kokanee want, because they're a reactive fish, and they want to react to what's going on in the water column. So that's a very important thing. But I wanted to reiterate to you that you do not, and I repeat, do not have to have Kokanators to catch these fish. Right on my deck, right there, you can see a couple of homemade ones, and you can see a couple more Kokanators. So I have more than just my Kokanators on my deck. I like Kokanators, and I think they're a great lure, but you do not have to have those. You can experiment with your own. I've got a silver and chartreuse. I've got a silver and red, and those have been producing very, very well for me. So those are the lures that I use generally to jig for kokanee. Just to show you, this is the Gary Dobyns Colt series rod, and so this is the one that sells for about 80 bucks. And so I just pulled this out. Once again, it has the same kind of thing on the Champion XP, but it says Colt series, and then if you turn it over, it shows you it's a CL 703 SF 7-footer, 8 to 17 pounds. In other words, this is basically the same rod that I'm using in the XP, the Champion XP series, that costs 250, 300 bucks, and I can pick it up for 80 bucks. Now, obviously, it's not the same kind of graphite. It's certainly not as pricey as the other, but it still produces, and for exactly what I'm doing here, it is a very, 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 very good rod to have. So, and just so that you know, I've got it set up exactly the same way. This happens to be another vapor, but it's out of the PT series, and basically you can find them on sale sometimes for 70 bucks, and if not, if you pay almost full retail, you're at 149 or something like that. But this is a very, very great reel. I like them a lot. You can look down on my deal there. I've got my deck. I've got a couple of other vapors. I've got what they call a smoke, and then I've got the Energy PT Accurist, and also my bait caster is an Accurist from Quantum. So I'm mostly a Quantum man, even though I have some Berkley product. I have some Shakespeare product, which is actually Berkley. So, but once again, even in a homemade lure like this, notice we've got the split ring up top, got the split ring down below. I do not have red hooks on this one because it was just kind of a fun thing to try. A friend of mine built it, and was kind enough to give me one to use to see if we could catch some fish with it. And so far it's done really, really well. Not specifically today, but yes, 2 days ago it did really, really well for us. So once again, that's basically the tackle setup. Thanks for watching today's episode on Allphin on Fishing. I hope that you learned something about my tackle and what I do and how I do it. And I have to apologize profusely for what I'm next going to tell you, and that is that I blew the actual footage that I shot yesterday, the 12th of January, because before I turned on the camera to officially start filming, I caught a fish and it slimed the camera lens, and I didn't realize that until about half of the way through. So that's why I reshot that today, but the clips you're going to see from yesterday, I'm still going to leave the clips of catching fish and maybe talking about a few things while I'm fishing, because there were some really good bites, and you can see me talking about the things that, some of the things that I was talking still about today, but you'll see that in, and then see a hook set or two. So I'm glad that you were, that you're patient and you're long suffering, because I'm not the best videographer. But thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something about my tackle, my rods, my reels, my line, and the lures that I use to target kokanee, especially this time of year. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.